Okay, so in this week in our Don't Assume series, what we're going to talk about is what do we mean by developmental math, which should be like, we all know what that means, but that phrase has changed meaning a lot in the last 10 to 15 years. So it used to be called remedial math, and that was what it was started calling like the 70s and 80s. And developmental math forever were these courses like pre-algebra, beginning algebra, and intermediate algebra that were originally high school courses, and we did versions of them, except in one semester instead of 1 year. They don't have very high pass rates, and we're basically doing the same content that they did in high school, but very skills-based, very quickly at the college level, with the idea that if the students can pass this, then they're going to be ready for a college level math class. That's what developmental math was forever. That is evolving. The idea now is when I'm working with schools, I say, what's your approach to developmental math? Not necessarily what are your developmental math courses? Because the reality is the idea that you're going to have students that are not ready for college level courses, that's never going away. They've had that for 200 years, or as long as we've had education, probably longer than 200 years. We've had students that come to us that aren't ready for a particular course. So the idea of students that are underprepared, it's like gravity. It just is, okay? But what do we do with those students? And the idea of your developmental math approach is how are you addressing students that may not have all the skills you need? For the longest time, we all knew what that meant. It just meant you had like a beginning algebra course, an intermediate algebra course. You may have had more courses than that. You may have had faster and slower versions and all different kinds of ways you offered, but it was still nuts and bolts, beginning and intermediate algebra. Now, the idea of developmental math is basically how are we serving students who aren't quite ready for college level math? What are the ways that we're doing it? And it isn't always a standalone course. And a lot of states are moving away from standalone courses because they're seeing more success, particularly for non-STEM pathways, like students who are headed towards statistics. They're seeing a lot more success with other options that are not standalone courses. Now, granted, we start to get into things that are a little controversial, but just wanted to throw that out there. That's where things are headed. So when you're hearing developmental math, start to think of it as an approach to serving students, not necessarily a course for students who are not prepared. The idea is where those students are is shifting. They still exist. Like I said, they still exist, but where they are is they're coming in different places. They may be sitting in a co-requisite class. They may be sitting in a singles developmental class. They may be sitting in a high school class and we have some kind of initiative that's helping them get college placement. It's the idea of we're addressing them. They might be working through some kind of bridge program with intensive tutoring. It's that they're not necessarily just sitting in a standalone course. All right, so I hope to see you back next week and we will talk more about the concept of pathways.